Hey everyone, so this is probably going to be like the final episode in the series of the Wild Thang. You make, well, I'm not going to go there. One of the guys that I know, I forget which one, he was singing that on the chat window. He was writing it out. Anyway, the Wild Thang, what I think is probably the worst saw on the planet. Poulan, I have a couple other videos on Poulan chainsaws. Craftsman. In that series, it's the same saw made by the same company. This one's, you know, it's not bad. I wound up with it. Okay, I wound up with it because my customer didn't want it. After I fixed it, I gave him the price. He's like, no. He already had somebody work on it, which the guy didn't do a very good job and didn't do him right. Did him a little dirty, and the saw's not that good to begin with. And if you don't go over it properly, now check out the previous video on that. And it's the most common thing that goes wrong with it. Now that leaves us with the carburetor and the fuel lines, and I tried to get the camera in as close as I could, so we're going to be doing the carburetor, just kind of going over it. It wasn't all that bad, but we're going to go over it, so I'm going to show you guys that. Some of the linkages, what can go wrong with the trigger when you put everything back together. It's going to fight you a little bit. It's serviceable. I mean, it's a good serviceable machine. And of course the fuel lines, which is always like this mystery. So we're going to talk a bit about fuel line sizes and show you some tips and tricks on how I get the fuel lines in and the routing and what is a primer bulb and which way does it connect, right? We're going to be using HIPA or HIPA Parts on this, the fuel lines, and of course shout out to them for helping to sponsor this video. So go to their website, and it's better. It's getting better. You can search your for any machine that you have. You kind of put in your model number, type, what have you. Very similar to everybody else. See if they have that part listed. The fuel lines, I recommend that you guys get the 3/16. But I also recommend, and I'll talk a little bit more about it in the video, but I also recommend you get like the universal kit, which comes in all these different sizes, and it's fun to have around. It's something for you that if you get a different machine in, you're not sure. It's something tactile, right? You can. If you're watching somebody like me talk about sizes and say it's the bigger medium and this versus the smaller medium and the small hose, and you're thinking, cameras can only go so far. If you got it in your hands, fellas, it's a lot easier. It's not very expensive for this stuff, especially the fuel line packs from HIPA. It's very economical, and you could probably use them for another machine or something else. You're going to get extra footage with it. It's going to make your life a little bit easier. All right, so we're going to go in deep on this one. We're going to take care of those things, and hopefully this is helpful to you. So I will see you in a minute. All right, so I'm just checking out what's inside the tank. The tank was okay, but I did find this could be, it doesn't really feel like a hose. Like this could be some sealant around something, but I got it out, I picked it out, and I blew out the rest of the way. So I'm going to make sure we're okay there. I also blew out the filter a little bit. All right, let me push this back out of the way. All right, so I got rid of this little bit of junk that I found here. I blew all this out. Now, another problem comes from this. I always tell my customers, and a lot of people know now, is to buy the prefabbed fuel, right? The true fuel or product like that. I did find a little bit of water in there and here, just a very small amount. This is the fuel. It's super clean and clear, but like I said, I got a little bit of water and a little bit of junk in it. We got rid of that. Now, here's the problem with it. It hasn't been used in a year. He wants to go to use it. A year, it could be a year, it could be a little less than a year. It's 12 months. We don't really know, but we're guessing, right? Well, what happens to fuel, once you crack open that container, if there's too much air in that container, or too much air in here, and remember, this is still kind of vented, right? It has a valve on it, but it's vented. The volatility changes. And I know sometimes some of my older videos, some people would see me smoking around fuel and they're freaking out, right? The volatility of all of these chemicals here, it varies considerably. And what I'm saying is that true fuel, that premixed product, it goes bad. And I can smell it too. It's lost a lot of its volatility. And I've had this problem where I've just changed out the fuel on a machine that checks out in every other way and it won't run. And that's one of the problems. It won't run or won't run well, it won't run right, because it's not volatile anymore. It's gasoline is part of the volatile organic compounds, right, in the chain. As you refine it, it goes up the fractal column, and it's aromatic. It's an aromatic hydrocarbon. In other words, you can really smell it. You can't really smell oil, right? You got to get your nose right in it. Why? Because its volatile compounds really are so low, there's so little of them that it doesn't really evaporate. Oil will eventually evaporate. It can turn into a grease. It can turn into a varnish. It can turn into, coal, by the way, is in part dried fuel. Dried oil. Remember that some of these oils, when you pull crude out, it's really nasty, right? It smells bad because it's got certain volatile compounds in it, but those get refined out. It's got a lot of sulfur in it. Sulfur rock stinks, right? When you grind it up, it stinks. So, but I want to stay on that volatile compounds. We'll talk a little bit more about it at the end, a little bit more. But like, there's some gas in here, but not that much. It's mostly oil. It's mostly transmission fluid. And so it doesn't really smell. It would be very difficult to light that. You need more than a spark. A lot more than a spark. Sometimes I use this or my two-stroke fuel to start my my little fire pit over there, and it doesn't go woof, right? But if I just use gasoline, it would. All right, we'll be back a minute. Let me put some regular gas in here, some regular two-stroke in it. See, I told you we'd be back in here again, right? This little primer bulb's got a hole in it now, right? It started to pull fuel, and then it popped. So we got to take it out, and I have another one. Let's see. Oh, jeez. Really? Did they not give us enough extra? Yeah, they didn't get... Whoa. Oh, boy. Oh, I lost it. Okay. I got to take it all apart now. They didn't give me enough hose. Yeah, and look, the hose broke. See? All right. I got to now we got to do... Before we go any further now I got to do fuel lines. All of them, right? So I got to dump the fuel back out, and I got to go over the carburetor. 8mm. Hopefully we don't have to do all the hoses, but, if one broke, that can mean that they're all going to go. Now, this is probably the return line. Yeah. The thin hose up here, that's your fuel supply line, right? We're going to take all this apart, okay? This guy, you should be able to just bring it forward. That comes up. And we're going to put a little bit of our, I like to think of it as a release agent. Give it just a bit of a twist. And it comes right off. Let's see, how does this feel? Feels okay. All right, now we can go take a look at the carburetor, because the throttle goes over here on this side. This should come off. And it all comes forward. And this guy, we just need to get him out of the way. Like that. And then we've got our little fuel line over here. This is hard. Yeah, they have there's no room for any extra. That's the one that broke. And here's the other one. And that one's no good. That's our return line. Okay, so we'll probably do all of them because it doesn't pay. All right, now you come up, throttle comes back, pull the throttle back. That should give us enough room. Then the little Z bend, and we're going to go wash this off. We're going to check everything. We're going to replace whatever we need to replace. We'll get it all nice and clean, and we'll go in there and we'll clean it out because there's probably junk in it. Let's just put this to the side for a minute. Okay, so while we're here, I always like to wash everything first, a little bit of my solvent. We don't want to be introducing any junk back in. So I give everything a nice wipe down, and then we'll crack it open. It's not too bad because it's been washed, with the hose. All right, let's pull this open. So this is the fuel pump side, and this is the valve side. So let's take a look And this is where the hose was broken. So we'll talk a little bit about what side is what and what's going on with the flow of the hoses. Let's check this diaphragm out. It should be good, but it's been, you know, if it sits dry for too long, that's another way that they go beat. Now it's a little wrinkly. See it? See it pumping? Hey? Hey? That's your pump. I'm going to just work it. You got to work it careful. Oh, wait. I got a spot. Okay, so we got a spot. Now, what we want is my tranny fluid stuff, and you might want to soak it for a little bit. But you want to kind of, this is, I always call it like it's like my release agent because I use it for so many things. It feels good. If we don't ruin it, it should feel like linen. Is the best description I've ever heard. I don't remember where I got that. One of you fellas out there that maybe back in the day was doing this. But it's exactly... Yeah, she's looking good. Keep it wet. She's pretty clean. Yeah, she's good. She's clean in there. And this feels good. And this is one of the ones with the big... It's got a big actuator, that little bump there, that little teat. Now I only clean these with either two-stroke or that tranny fluid stuff, because the tranny fluid stuff, keep in mind what's in a transmission, right? Highly polished, highly machined metals of different types and seals, silicone rubber seals, tons of them. So that's why I only go with that or two-stroke. Let's see what we got in here. It should be okay, but we got it. You know, we got to go in here now. All right, that looks good. Let's just see here. Just dump that. There's usually a little bit of dirt, and there is. It's just you can't really see it, but it's just a little bit right there. And these are our valves. That's what these are, these little valves, right? They, instead of having the valves on the engine, they're made out of Mylar. And same thing. Right? I just... with my fingers, as clean as I can get them or keep them. That's it, that's done. Now, I'll show you. Yeah, she got some dirt. Hold on. There's no reason to do any poking or anything in this one. This one's pretty clean. If I take like an acid brush or whatever and I cut the bristles down a little, and I just go like that, just to loosen anything up. That's the filter. And let's just give it a good wash. Now, there's nothing on this thing now. We're not going to touch those. There's really nothing on it. That's going to cause a problem, you know, from gum out. As long as you don't just keep it, you don't want to immerse it in gum out. There's no reason to soak any of this. I usually depress this fulcrum down here a little bit just to lift up the needle and off the seat, and then... Okay, now I'm going to blow it with low pressure air. Away from the table. See? She's mint. So that screen, okay, so... the fuel, this is your fuel intake. Watch, right? This is connected to the hose that goes into the tank and that big filter that's weighted. And watch. See? So what's happening is it's being sucked in, comes up and through the porting here on this side, and when it gets pulled or pushed really into the carburetor by the pump, you could probably say more, it's being pulled in. It has to come past that screen before it gets into the rest of the innards or internals of the carburetor, right? So that's your screen of last resort. All right, now we can take this guy here, and sometimes there's a bit of debris around here. This one there isn't, but there can be, and again, with my brush, lightly, and then just a bit of And you see how little I use? Especially when the carburetors aren't that bad. I'm not using much, right? Why, you know, I see people, I capture it all, right? Because I do this all the time. I'm not going to throw out all that cleaning solution. I put it in that kind of a container, and the stuff settles to the bottom, and I skim off the junk off the bottom. All right, now we can assemble it. So we got our valves. And you just got to line them up with these little detents here, one on each side, either side, and then we can drop it down. Now, a lot of times you got to move the throttle open a little bit so it falls down in seats. It's super quick. Done. Okay, now the gasket's down there. Now, on most of these kinds of carburetors, the gasket goes first. But that's not always the case, right? There are some of them where they put the primer bulb on top of the carburetor. That's a different order. It's actually reversed. And so that little actuator tang, right, that goes in to the carburetor or down. It'll line up. This one actually has these little things that line it up. It looks like it's okay. We could put a new one on, but it's not that old. It should work. If we really have a problem, I'll have to come back in here again. But I don't think so. It's not old. It shouldn't be bad. They don't have to be absolutely pristine, but if you're a stickler for it and you want to start doing your own saw working, you absolutely have to have that saw working every year. You might actually want to buy a bunch of these. They come in packs, you know, those little diaphragms. That's the thing that's going to go. Get yourself the diaphragm, maybe a pack of 5 or 10 or 12, whatever they come in. Get some, generally the milers don't go if you take care of everything. Maybe a couple of gaskets, some air filters, you know, your little field pack or whatever. A couple of tools, clean environment, something to lay down, piece of cardboard, rags, clean rags. You know, or just do it every year at your bench. Find a bench somewhere, picnic table, and just go over it. Don't over tighten it. It's good. Okay, so we're all ready to go. All right, we're ready to put this back in, but this is your intake. All right, this is your coming in from the tank. Remember? Comes up into here in the valve pack, and then it comes pulled into the carburetor where it's metered, and the fuel pump is pulling, pushing and sucking, pushing and sucking. And so this is your output side. Okay, that's your primer. All right, and we'll figure out what side that is. I'll think about that in a minute because I got to change hats. We need to push it to the side for a minute, and we're going to get the air compressor, and I'm just going to, off camera, I'm just going to blow around in here a little bit, and we're going to have to fish through some new lines. All right, I got some nice medium line. This is the bigger line. And there's two sizes. This size is too big. So there's another medium line. I call it medium because the outside diameter is the same, but the inside diameter is smaller. So I'm going to go find that in a minute. Now, I might put in here or maybe at the end, it's a whole lesson that I made up on lines and what you can expect to see and find. What we need to do is we need to get this out. I need to grab that line and pull it through if I can. Okay, so here is, this is like a lock. It's actually a union or coupling. So it's a hose bar on either end. And they stick that on there so that you can't pull this upwards. See, that's all broken. So that's what was going on. So let's get this up. We're going to do this guy first. Okay, we got it. Let me get that line I was telling you about. Okay, so this is our HIPA line. And this is a 10-foot pack. You can look it up. It's 3/16 line, okay? So they call it 2.5 millimeter by 5 millimeter. All right? 3/16 inside diameter, I believe is what it is. right, now we're going to take our line. I'm going to leave it full length for now because that's what we want. And how it's going to go, it's going to come this way, right? They all go this way. So we got to get it in first. It only has to penetrate a little bit. So I'm just going to cut the end a little. So you're going to make a leader, like a way to push it in and pull it through. And I'm going to cut it. And what you really want to do, your biggest problem is right there. So if you have your diagonals, try to cut it back on a taper. Right? Create more of a taper, or even an angle, right? It just makes it that much easier. And now we'll pass that leader in, and we'll have to get a little screwdriver or something to help shove it in there because there's no way to put our fingers. There you go. We just got to push it in enough, and we can grab it the rest of the way with something. We're going to leave it long, and we will terminate it. Now I'm pushing it down, and I want to just kind of get it past that point where I told you to make the taper, if I can. And what can also help is take a little bit of your two-stroke or something and get it on there as a lubricant. See, now I can reach in there and grab it. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll twist it if I can really pull on it. Right? Here it comes. That's all we need. Right, now we can cut it. And we're going to put that little end on. Now a lot of times I don't, but this is just to show you. I like to keep some of these, but this keeps it from pulling up and pulling out. So it's going to pull it back up until it stops. That's it. Okay, that's done. And it pretty much, I think this one comes, I don't want to lose that. This one we're going to just kind of give it some extra slack. We'll leave it about here for now until we figure out what's going on, right? So this is our return line, so that when you're priming, you're actually, when you prime, one side is suction on the primer and one side is pushing out. When you prime, you're actually sucking on the feed side. This is the feed. We're going to do this next. This is connected to the filter. You're pulling fuel up through that filter, through this line, in through the carburetor, and then out the carburetor to this is a return line. All right? So keep that thought. We got to get this guy out now. So this guy, we should be able to just kind of grab it. And I'm going to pull this out. Let me yank this out, and I'm going to set us up for this. So this is our supply, right here. And on this one, it's the smaller line. Yeah. So they use a smaller line on the feed. Let's set up with that. And we can clean this out, right? You can blow some brake fluid or gum out, and then with compressed air, blow it different directions, you know, through this way and back out again, and you'll see it'll come nice and clean. And especially unless it's dirty, unless it's like really foul in there, then throw it out. Because if this is not able to pass fuel at a very high flow rate, the carburetor will starve for fuel and the engine won't run right. It won't make any power. You'd be lucky sometimes even to start it. So if you think this thing's kind of dirty and it's all fuzzy here and everything, don't clean it. Just throw it out. Get another one. Make that part of your kit. All right, dunked it in my little bit of degreaser, and I'm going to put a little bit of, before I take the hose off. This one we could have left, but see, it cleaned it off good. And then we'll see. I don't want to make a mess here. Low pressure air. Okay. Let me blow it. All right, that's clean. So we're going to replace this line. And the other thing too that can happen is where it was sitting where it passes through, it can get crushed over time and it will leak, and then of course it will leak. The tanks get somewhat pressurized, right? Because you're priming it, so you're putting pressure on the tank just a little bit when you prime too, which helps to force the fuel through. Because it's kind of putting a bit of pressure on the tank because you're priming it, right? The return fuel and air comes through, puts a little pressure on the inside of the tank. This has a valve on it that helps, one, keeps the fuel fresh, keeps the air out and any water from getting in, but also it's pushing on the filter a bit, assisting the pump, right, to make sure that it's going to push any air out or whatever and deliver fuel. So this is a seal area, acts as a seal, and when it gets older, this is also often where it will break because it's crushing down on it, loses its flexibility, and you can see it's no longer flexible there, and then it starts to leak there. So that's why another reason why we want to replace this. We're going to do a good job here, particularly on the fuel lines. That's always the problem with these machines. So this is coming right off. All right, so we got some line. Here's our excess from before. Put that to the side. I'm going to put a little leader on it, and we're going to push it through, just like I did before. All right, we got that on there. Now, if you're having a problem getting things on, you can actually take, you know, a pair of needle nose pliers or whatever, and just pry open and turn it and pry open and turn it and pry open. I have this nice little set, but sometimes you can just kind of get a bigger set in there. It's good to have, you know, tools. All right, so we're already strung up. All right, that's about where we want it. Just drop it in and kind of peek in there, and you want it to lay flat, so that's a bit too much. This is a bit of a subjective thing. There's no measurement per se, but you want to make sure that, kind of looking in there, see, she's kind of hung up. She's not laying down at the bottom. She should kind of lay flat. So we're going to take a bit of the excess out. There we go. Yeah, so it's laying flat. That filter's got to lay down on the base, because this is typically the, you know, the position. So start from there. So we're good here. All right, now is when, so this guy had a little short piece coming off of it, right? This went like this, and this is stuck this way. That went there. I think this went underneath. We're getting ready to put the carb back on. I think we're going to put a little piece on the carb itself. And this should be over here on this side, so we'll terminate that in a little bit. Okay. This is the top, the bottom. So we had a piece here. Okay. So we're, and over here is where the fuel goes. So if we kind of lay this, we're just going to start sizing. All right, so that's about, without connecting anything, if we lay this in, and like I said, I think this, yeah, I think this should be underneath that wire. Let's try that. If, you know, now that I'm doing it, I don't care what it was really, but let's lay this in. All right. Lay that back. We have a little bit of room to kind of dump in that little pocket down there. So make sure everything is clean, right? Because you don't want to be introducing any gook. Yeah. We want to make sure she's not going to kink or anything. I think it could probably go above that wire, because that wire is kind of forcing it to make a bit of a turn there that's a little tight. I'm not happy with, but I definitely think this is about as long as we need it. You know what? If you have plenty of line, you can't really make a mistake, right? So this is where we're going to open it up a little. That should be good. We don't want to overdo it. Okay. Let's pull that carb back out. All right, now I just need another piece of line. It's a bigger line. It's the medium line. And we need to go into our new suction primer bolt. So you hear it? All right, now watch. One side suction, the shorter one usually. Yeah. Finger over it. I'm going to take my finger off. All right, that's suction. You do it to this side, nothing happens. That's your suction side. So the one on the end is your suction. The longer one in the middle, so to speak, is the output. Okay? Keep that in mind. So we want to be sucking through the carburetor. This is our return leg, right? So that's actually going to go about here. Do we have enough of that? Could be a little bit shorter, maybe. Just a little bit. See, they didn't even leave anything. So there's our suction line. Excuse me, our discharge line. Okay, so now we're not going to get confused. Now we need to suck from the carburetor down here. So I just need a small piece of line. It's a piece of scrap with one of those fittings on the end. Sorry, I banged the camera. So I'm going to put you here. Okay, that's that medium 3/16. And that should be enough, right? We're going to have to take you off, but we should be able to cut it. We got that. We got that. Now, I'm going to put this back over the top because I wasn't too happy with the way it laid. All right, so we'll deal with that. Now we're going to get our pain in the neck. What did I do? We have to retrieve this. So now, let's put that on. Okay, good. We got you on. See, this should come forward. Pull back on the throttle a little bit. Gotta line it up. All right, now with it there, get this stupid thing. I'm gonna try to get it on. Yep, that's the right way. And slide it down and in. Pull back on the throttle a little bit. Not much room to work. I think this line feels like it might be in the way. One of these lines doesn't feel right with that throttle. All right, but we got to get it down, and it's fighting me. Right, like it did before. And yeah, okay. So we have this fuel line is absolutely in the way here, and it's this line coming down. It's in the way. So it's got to, that's why they bent it the way they did. You have to route it in and around like that. Okay? That should be good. And then this guy too. All right, now, pain in the neck, right? Kind of fits all together at once. That's like rubber, so a little screwdriver, a little flathead or something. Yeah, that's it. Okay. And that's why there was no slack on it. All right, so now we can hook up the intake line, and we'll test it and see if it's too tight, too much of a excess. Oh, it should be good. We buried it down in there. This line was short. It seems like we don't have much of a choice to make it short because it just doesn't have anywhere to go. So we could make it a little shorter, but let's sneak it up. We may have to take a little off so if you can see what I'm doing here. All right, there's not a lot of room in there. There's no way to get a good camera angle. I think that'll do it. Yeah. All right, let's screw it in. I've got a mosquito around me. Yep. Isn't that great? It's mosquito season. Skeeter season. I can screw it in as long as I don't screw it up. It feels like it's pushing on it a little bit too much. Let's see what happens when we put it together. You got to leave yourself some excess. Just not too much. All right. Just make it a little tighter. Vibrations. Okay, so primer bulb in. Now we got this guy. Yeah, what is that flying around? It's a mosquito. Sorry. Something. Go away. I got a spray. I got all kinds of bugs tearing at the walls, literally. So with it down all the way, it's moving properly. So that's the thing. You want to make sure that throttle is moving good before we bolt everything home. And that looks good. So now the way to test it is we're going to put fuel in it. And if it's correct, you'll know. So let's put the other part on. Because if I have to take it apart again, it's not a big deal. There's only a few, bolts and screws. Okay, it all snaps in there. I'm going to put these back on, tighten it back up. We'll put fuel in it, and we'll do the primer bulb test. And if you get it right, that primer bulb will fill. And we won't have any leaks. All right, now I'm using a 1/4" drive and a stubby. No tools here other than that, right? 8mm. And notice where I have it, right? I'm really choking up on it because you go for tightness and you're done. It's all in plastic. Okay, check choke. Choke is going good. Okay. Throttle seems to be working. Wait, hold on. Uh-oh. I'm not seeing it return all the way. I think it's hitting some of that rubber line. Yeah, it could be or. It's also hitting the wire that's here. There's not a lot of room. I can see it. It's not returning. I actually have to kind of grab the trigger and push back, so it's rubbing on that line. So I'm going to take this off, and I'm going to shorten it a little bit. It's the one that goes to the carburetor. There's just no, there's no room there. All right, I'm back in here again. So the actual, the throttle lever piece actually came off because it's not on correctly. So like I said, there's not a lot of room in here. So we take it back off. And it's this piece here. We'll try it again. Pulling back on the throttle is the only way you're going to get the car back in. So you have to do it with like part your thumb. This lever has to be on the other side of that fuel line. Okay, that's what's going on. So however we need to make that so. That feels a little bit better. Now we got to get this guy back. This is going to be, you see, this is going to be the majority of your time and frustrations. Okay. Yeah, you hear it? Yeah, she's coming all the way back. Okay, that's correct. So let's put this on now. So hold everything into place. The routing looks about right. Everything's laying nice. It might take you a few tries, guys. There's nothing I can say to you that other than what I'm trying to say as I narrate. You see, it took me a few tries, right? So that's how it is with these things, especially these Poulans. It's not a terrible design. It's just, you know, for the price and everything. Yep, that's correct. All right, now we got some fuel in it, and let's find out if this fills up. Okay, so I gotta lay it flat. Here it comes. There it is. All right, see? It's full. And that pretty much means you got the routing right, okay? So now we're gonna bring it outside. I'm gonna put the rest of this back on again and bring it outside and we'll run it up. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay. Yeah, see, I just brought up a little bit. Yeah, that's about right. Okay, I'd run that for a little bit. It's nice and oiled. It's leaking too. Of course, they all do that. But it's good. All right, let's bring it back in for the final. Hit the like and subscribe button if you guys haven't already. Don't forget to leave a comment or a complaint, a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If you leave a thumbs down, hit it twice. I'll see you guys in the next one.